Oh, definitely better quality. Great job by all done. We even got the logo right here on the microphone. So we have stepped our Zoom game up for the actual game week. So good job, all. Appreciate y'all being on here. It's finally time for football. And reflecting back, really over the last several months, honestly didn't know if we'd get to this point during certain times, and didn't know if we'd be able to play. And here we are, just a few days away from kickoff, 12:03 at Mountaineer Field. So just really humbled to have the opportunity to coach after everything that's gone on over these last few months. I know our players, speaking for them, you'll have an opportunity to hear from a few of them later. But they're extremely excited to compete, as you can imagine. I want to just say a real sincere thanks to Shane Lyons and Dr. Gee for all their hard work, publicly and privately, to get us to this point. And I also want to make sure that our fans understand that we're going to miss them on Saturday. Unfortunately, can't have them in the stadium. We'll be thinking about them, and it will not be the same. And that's probably in a season of a lot of different things and things that are abnormal. That is going to be the most difficult challenge for our players, and the one that's the most unfortunate, not having our fans. Talking about Eastern Kentucky, that's my mom's alma mater, so know quite a bit about Eastern Kentucky there in Richmond, not too far from where I grew up. Tradition-rich program, one of the proudest programs in all of the FCS. Growing up there, always knew about Eastern Kentucky. I went to several games growing up. Roy Kidd is a coaching legend that won several national championships with that program. And so a lot of respect for them. Walt Wells, just know in passing, know several of the guys on that staff, have respect for them. They had a tough game last week. Expect them to bounce back like most teams do between week 1 and week 2. They will make adjustments, and they'll be much improved this week. Just in general about them offensively, they're a unit that wants to run the football. Coach Wells has had success at several different spots as an offensive line coach in his background, running the football. They have 2 running backs, Pringle and Booth, that are both really talented. Eastern Kentucky last season was one of the top rushing offenses in FCS. And they have several FBS transfers at wideout, so talent in that receiver room. Defensively, they're multiple front. They like to pressure. Several FBS transfers at the linebacker, and at the couple on the D-line, and then 1 at corner as well, or 2 at corner, excuse me. And the special teams, thought their punter really hit the ball well last week. He's a transfer as well, junior college transfer. He really hit the ball well. And then Pringle is a nice returner, so we have to do a good job in special teams. This is a week where it's about us. We're excited to have the opportunity to play. We're a work in progress. It's time to play. We've practiced long enough. We've got a lot of work to do. Monty makes me put together a depth chart. I know I think Chris asked about that last week. You've got a depth chart, but those jobs are still very much open. And we'll be competing all week, and whether that's accurate come game day or not, we'll see. Because we're going to have competition at almost every single position this week in practice as we continue to prepare for our first performance on Saturday. And so with that, we'll open up for questions.
All right, first question from Coach Hunter. Greg, go ahead and unmute yourself.
So, Coach, obviously every year there are tons of unknown questions or unknown answers even for you. So give us a couple that you go into this season with, maybe different than in the past or the same as in the past.
Yeah, you really don't know what you have until you go out and play somebody else. You've heard me say this before, Coach, is you go through it and, you go and you have a scrimmage. Let's say the offense has success. Is that good offense or that bad defense? You always wonder as the head coach. You go into a scrimmage, defense has success. Is that good defense or suspect offense? And so you don't really know until you line up and play somebody else. I know we have a lot of youth. We have some inexperience. How they react, it's going to be different because there's actually not going to be fans in the stands, so there probably won't be as much pressure as in a normal situation. I think special teams is always kind of the wild card in these first games. You try to practice special teams as fast as you possibly can. but you don't necessarily tackle in a kickoff or a kickoff return situation or a punt coverage situation. And so when you get into live football and you're doing full tackle special teams, I think those are probably always the biggest concerns for me.
Next question here from Keenan. Go ahead, Keenan.
Hey, Neal. Was wondering about, how you feel about this team chemistry-wise. I know Bob asked you a couple weeks ago about personality. Also wanted to follow up on that. How's that coming along as well?
I think chemistry and leadership are the two items that we've got to work on. Discipline too. I think college football teams across the country are probably struggling with a little bit of discipline just because of the climate where you were away from your guys for so long. And when I say discipline, I'm talking about not as much off the field. I'm just talking about getting into a routine and a schedule, that type of discipline, self-discipline. So that's an area we got to improve on. The team chemistry, that's something that I've really it's been challenging, honestly, from a personal level on the team chemistry, because that's something I felt like at Troy we did an extremely good job. I thought last year, and you can see by the way we played toward the end of the year, that our chemistry got better and we had a lot of buy-in. And I think some of that was because of how much time they spent away. Spent together away from here. But with COVID and the procedures and the protocols and the restrictions, it's been hard. We haven't had team activities going back to March. And we've had some dinners, but when we have dinners, it's basically two at a table. You're basically with that small group of position members all the time, and so team chemistry is a concern. And I wouldn't say it's just at West Virginia; it's probably across the landscape of college football. And then leadership. We've really only been practicing together as a full unit for about 2 weeks now, and so for leaders to emerge, they have to kind of go through and be around the entire team, and that's usually happens in winter workouts, which we did. And we thought we had those guys ID'd, and then you have this long break. We didn't really have a normal summer where the team had team workouts. We didn't have those. They basically worked out with a roommate and a couple other guys that hang out outside the facility with. So those are we're trying to continue to grow our team chemistry, and we're trying to identify and continue to build our leaders and put those guys in situations where they can lead.
Coach, yesterday you talked a little bit about your game plan, specific to EKU. Are there things that you want to run that may not necessarily be specifically to attack what they're doing, but to see where your progress is in those, certain areas of either offense or defense?
Well, I think we're going to be extremely simple. We feel like that our base offense, our base defense is we've got to continue to get better at that. We don't have those reps logged that we would normally have in a spring practice or a summer. So we've simplified what we're doing after about 2 weeks of camp, trying to identify what the quarterback was good on offensively, and then defensively what our best front movements were and what our best coverages are in the secondary, and really trying to attack not only what Eastern Kentucky's doing, but what teams the teams in our future that will play in late September and October, what those teams do, and make sure that we're sound and our guys know what the answers are within our base schemes.
Next question from John Raby. Just asked you to unmute. Go ahead.
Hi, Neal. Eastern Kentucky didn't score any points and managed only 166 total yards last week. Is there a challenge mentally or anywhere else to prepare for an opponent that had a performance like that?
Yeah, I think the challenge is to get better. I think that's probably what they went into, and they won several one-on-one battles in that game. They just, it's hard in offense football sometimes. You got 11 guys, you got to do the right things, and I think what you saw with them, there were some times where they had 9 or 10 doing the right things, and maybe one, and maybe that was at the point of contact. But I do think they have some talent at running back. I think Pringle and Booth are both guys that are capable of playing at this level. I think they've got some guys on the offensive line that were preseason all-conference, and they got some guys that can stretch the field. Receiver is a concern. They've got guys that can run. Tennessee, UConn transfer. There's a couple more in that room that are talented and made a bunch of big plays for them last year. But I think they just go back. I think teams always, you see that, it's cliche, they always make the biggest improvement between week 1 and week 2. And like I said, they've got some really good coaches on that staff, and I expect that to happen.
Next question from Cody Nesper. Go ahead, Cody.
Hey, Neal. We know that Nick Troy was away from the team for a few weeks, and I was just wondering, has he been back long enough that he'll be ready on Saturday?
Yeah, Nick Troy, he continued to condition while he was away from the team. He was away from almost 2 entire weeks. He has a lot of self-discipline, and he did while he was home, and that was important for him to stay at home, and we encouraged him to be with his family during that time. But he did. He stayed in really good physical shape. He was able to zoom into our position meetings and our team meetings, so he had a good feel about what was going on in practice and what we were installing. And so when he came back, he's been back for, probably week 8, 9 days maybe now. But conditioning, he still has some work to do, but he will play, and we think he'll play well.
Go ahead, Sean Manning.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned the improvement from week 1 to week 2 for teams. While they have that advantage when you guys don't, is that something you see as being an issue for you guys, or now you have a full game worth of tape on them compared to what they have on you? How does that work out, you think?
I mean, they're going to have a good feel for what we're going to do. They've been watching tape on us as well, so I don't think we're necessarily going to surprise them with anything we do. I just think, Sean, it's kind of is what it is. They played a game last week. It was a great opportunity for them. They were on ESPN. So they've got a game under the belt. I do think they'll make improvements. I do think that they'll play better, probably considerably better this week than they did a week ago. But it is what it is. We're going to get our guys ready. I have a lot of respect for Eastern Kentucky. I told you, being from there and what that program meant to the state where I'm from and what Roy Kidd did for football in the state of Kentucky. I have a ton of respect for them. But we're focused on West Virginia and us getting better and us getting ready to play, which we're extremely, like I said, humbled, excited. And I think that getting an opportunity to go out there and perform on FS1, and unfortunately not in front of our home fans, but hopefully they tune in and watch that we got to continue this climb that we're on to get better. And I'm excited for our fans to see it. I don't think it's going to be perfect. It won't be entirely clean, but the effort and the physicality will meet the standard.
All right, next question from Mike Zaza.
Neal, how's it going?
Good, Mike. How are you?
Good. You've talked plenty about the unknowns and trying to gauge expectations for things you haven't encountered. You have somewhat of an advantage, at least an insight, by having watched a handful of games so far. Has that, raised any curiosity for you or raised any flags for you about maybe better beware of this, or I hadn't thought of that, or you know what, I was right, this thing is a big deal and we better get ready for it?
Well, you talking virus related, Mike? You talking virus related or just? I know you got to unmute.
No, the actual competition.
The actual competition. I think last night's game is a great example, and I didn't get to see the first half. I watched the second half. But you worry about blocking and tackling, and I saw where Navy's coach came out and talked about where they hadn't really done a whole bunch of live work. We didn't do a whole lot of live work for the first 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks we have. We've been pretty physical. I wouldn't say we're over the top with it by any means, but we've been moderately physical for the last 2 weeks. But I think that's the concern is blocking and tackling, the fundamental football things that you can't do in shorts, things you can't do when you're at home working out in your backyard, lining up and having to physically move people off the line of scrimmage and then tackle guys in space. I think that was my concern when we started, and I think that's still my concern moving into week 1, maybe more so, Mike, after watching some of the games. And I'll be honest, I watched that game last night. I watched bits and pieces of the first half live of the Marshall game and Eastern Kentucky game. I watched some Oregon State and Memphis, and that's probably been about the extent of it.
All right, next question from John. Go ahead, John. You're muted.
Okay, you hear me now? Yeah, two quick ones. When you watched the game last week, was it more a product of Marshall playing well or Eastern Kentucky playing poorly? And the second thing, do you plan on playing a lot of guys this week? You mentioned that earlier in camp. Is that still part of the plan?
So I'll answer the first question. I don't know. I don't know enough about Marshall to say. Thought the freshman quarterback, I think he's a redshirt freshman quarterback. He did a really nice job. They've got talent at tight end and receiver. Watching them on offense. Defensively, I thought their front did a nice job. I think that Eastern Kentucky's capable of playing better. And, watching and reading some of Coach Wells' comments, I think that's why I expect them to be much improved. But, game ones are tough. A lot of times you throw them out and who knows. But I don't know enough about either one of those programs to probably give you a great answer. What was the second question, John? Are we going to play a lot of? Yeah, we're going to play a lot of people. Yep, we're going to play a lot of people. A lot of those freshmen are going to play. I think it's important. We're going to play anybody that's proven to this point that they're ready to play in a game. We're going to give them opportunity.
Okay, go ahead, Carly.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned that quarterback was a battle up until the last scrimmage. What did Daggy do better that he earned the starting job?
I don't know if it's something he did better. He was probably more consistent going back through the entirety of fall camp.
We'll take 4 more questions here. These last 4 in queue. Go ahead, Kevin Kendrick.
Other than Taj Alston, is anyone definitely out this week? And with the potential that someone could test positive Friday that you wanted to play that won't play, do you have like a standby list of guys that weren't going to plan to dress but say, hey, you're next up, if there is a positive test?
I'll answer the second one first. We go into every home game where we have a dress out list and then we have a jersey list, and we'll approach it the same way. We have contingency plans. We do, and we've had those in place really going back to probably the middle of the summer, Kevin, as far as if catastrophe hits, what does it look like? As far as the injury, Taj Alston right now is only injury. I'm not going to get into who's in, who's out until later in the week, just because the environment we're in. And we're going to test Wednesday. We tested Sunday. Those results are coming in. I haven't gotten the full list of results on those yet. We're going to test again Wednesday, and then we'll test again on Friday. So we'll kind of wait later in the week to do any speaking on that. Just kind of hit it once and let Monty kind of cover it at the end of the week.
All right, next question from Greg Hunter. Go ahead, Greg.
Coach, since last season, you've talked about the need for improvement in the run game. So you now got a few practices under your belt. Probably maybe not have the exact idea, but do you think your run game is improved?
We better be.
Next question from Cody Nesper.
So when we talked to TJ Simmons a couple Saturdays ago, he talked about a challenge you posed to the players about making change, where you asked what they can do to make the change they want to see. I was just wondering if you could talk to us about that challenge you posed to them, and then the kind of conversations you've been having with the team over the past few weeks.
Yeah, that challenge came direct from Tony Dungy, who had put out a tweet that kind of really spoke to how I was feeling. And we've talked going back from the end of May. We've got a planned speaker this afternoon at 2:30. So these discussions are ongoing, and I think I talked about it on the radio show last week with Tony. Is we focus on 3 topics: empathy, education, leadership. And that's everything that we're doing on anything from a social injustice or anything that's current events. Those are the 3 topics that this fall, from the summer to this fall, that we're locked in on: empathy, education, and leadership. And so that was a challenge to myself, to our staff, and to our players. is it can't just be what we're talking about. We can't just make a statement on social media. We can't just do things social media. You actually have to do actions, and to me it always starts inward, you work outward. And so what I mean by that, from your own heart, and then it goes to, in our college players, and myself included, it goes to your campus, then it goes to your community, then it goes to your state, then nationally, so on and so on. And so we just talked about what are small changes that we can do right now, within yourself, within the campus, within our community. Let's not even think real big spectrum. Let's talk about those. And we had them written down. And now we're in a challenge. We also had them kind of rank the top subject matters that they wanted to explore during this semester. And this is all player driven. I think it's really important. It's driven by the players, and the things that we're going to do are player driven. And so, hopefully that answers your question.
All right, final question from Mike Kazaza. Mike, go ahead.
Just two guys in your offensive line, Neal. Seeing Parker's name at guard, hadn't heard or seen him a lot, and maybe he wasn't situated in a spot. Looks like that's the way now. But
did you say Mike? Did you say Parker? I'm sorry, Parker Moore.
Parker Moore, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
So he was
okay.
one, and then Mays, he can snap. He's playing right tackle. He can probably handle himself at guard. What's the realistic shot for him? Is he number two at a bunch of positions, or does he slot in different order in different spots?
Mays will play a lot. Mays is going to play a lot. Could potentially start. If he doesn't start, he'll be the 6th one in, and he's going to play. He's going to play a lot. He's had a nice camp. Mentally, he's done a great job. We've had him. He's played center, played guard. He's played both tackles, and done a nice job. And he's an extremely intelligent player. He's worked to get stronger. He'll definitely. And he's got a chance to start. And if he doesn't start, he'll play a lot. And then Parker is a young developing guy that we're excited about in the future. He's had some ups and downs this fall camp, more fundamental issues than anything. He's big, he's strong. Our hope is to get him in play. Right now, we feel like he's a better fit at guard probably than at tackle.